Hi guys, Brian from Boas here. If you've been shopping for a boa lately, you may have noticed that the prices have gone down quite a bit in the last couple of years. But has the boa market crashed? And what are the reasons behind these prices? And where's the boa market headed in the next few years? Those are the questions I'm going to address today. So stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this one. So as I mentioned, the prices have definitely come down over the last couple of years. If you go and peruse Morph Market or Fauna or any of the online classifieds, many of these boas have dropped in price, in some cases by almost half, compared to their peaks back around 2020, 2021, when the boa market seems to have peaked. However, I've been following the boa market for quite a while, several decades now, following the trends, and like any item, it's pretty normal for the markets to go up and down over time. There are a lot of causes that contribute to this. I'm going to speculate on some of them today. I'm not an economist, but it's pretty obvious why, in some cases, the market goes up and down. So to understand why the prices are what they are today, we have to take a brief stroll back down memory lane and look at the context of the boa market over the last few decades. And until relatively recently, the boa market seemed to be more focused on morph boas, going up until about maybe 10 to 15 years ago. Morph boas seemed to be more popular, and the morph boas had a pretty predictable price trajectory. When a new morph came out, if it was something popular, it would be selling in the tens of thousands of dollars because there were so few of them available. And then as people bred them and they became more available, the prices went down. And so people would try to get in on the ground floor, and they would try to grow up their animals as quickly as possible, often by power feeding and other unhealthy practices, and they try to make their money back. So obviously not a very good recipe for success in the long term. So what happened about, the last, I'd say 15 years ago, or 15 years or so, people have become more interested in locality boas. And I should mention, locality boas have always been quite popular, but they've been a little bit more of a niche specialty with fewer people overall working with them. And you don't really see them as often at reptile shows or pet shops or things like that. They're just more specialized. And most of the viewers of this channel, I think, are really into the localities. And I appreciate you for liking them, because obviously I love the localities. But until about, I would say, 10 years ago, morph boas were still really popular. And then what happened, actually it was probably more like around 15 years ago, suddenly the morph market seems to have crashed. There were quite a few morphs that just weren't selling, and there were more and more of them available. People had gotten into them, and it's basically a pyramid scheme. You can't keep, in order for the prices to continue to go up and for people to have, continue to come in and do it, you need more and more people entering the scheme. And there's only a certain number of people that are going to be into boas. So the prices ultimately couldn't hold up. And locality boas were becoming more popular. So I would say around maybe 10 years ago, the locality started to get really popular. But even going back 10 or 15 years, there were a lot of locality boas that now are really expensive that you could get relatively cheaply. For example, the Tarahumara boa, these guys were available, in the $200 to $300 range for quite a while. The poster child for locality boa price increases is probably the Argentine boa. For many years, going back around 15 to 20 years ago, they were available in many cases under $200. And then they just started to get really popular around 5 to 10 years ago, and the prices just went up. And the prices, of course, are determined by supply and demand, like everything else in a free market society. If there is a high demand and a low supply, of course, the prices go up. If there is a low demand and a high supply, the prices go down. And you should think about that whenever you're trying to understand the prices of anything in the current market. So locality boas were becoming more popular. But there was always a low supply of them because fewer people were working with them. They're not easy in general to breed. It takes a long time, and the success is not guaranteed. So suddenly boas went up quite a bit. And this is going back just the last 5 years or so. But then the big thing that really kicked the market into high gear was, of course, COVID. And as you know, when COVID hit, people suddenly couldn't do a lot of the stuff that they used to love to do. For example, they couldn't travel, they couldn't go to concerts, they couldn't go to sporting events. Most of them were just stuck at home. And a lot of them are working from home, so they've got all this time at home, and they're looking for a way to spend their time. So the perfect hobby, I'm going to go into Boas. I'm going to get a bunch of Boas, maybe breed them, maybe make some money back. And so all of a sudden people are really into getting Boas and other reptiles. This is around 2020 when COVID hit. And of course, Boas in general have become more and more popular. I like to think part of it is due to channels like this on YouTube, just spreading the message about how great these animals are. But of course, with this increasing demand, the supply hadn't increased. And if anything, the supply had decreased over the last, 5 to 10 years or so. So suddenly, everybody wanted locality Boas, and the prices just shot up. And some of the locality Boas had already been going up in price, like the Tarahumara and the Argentine boa, as I mentioned. But suddenly, everyone wanted these. And between 2020 and 2021, which is probably when it peaked, you could sell locality Boas really quickly. I would sell out usually within hours of listing a litter. The prices I was getting were, I never thought I'd be getting these prices. It was a pretty good seller's market for a while. Hopefully you guys who bought into the market at that time, you still love your Boas and you still get your value out of your Boas. So hopefully you're not too bummed that maybe the prices are a little bit less now. But that's just how it is. Whenever you buy something, the price could go up or it could go down. You just never know. Thought I'd grab another Boa, and what other Boa but the poster child for the increases in locality Boa prices. Of course, the Argentine Boa. This is a young adult male. Hopefully he won't be too frisky. The Argentines don't always sit still when I take them out, but we'll just have to see. So anyway, the locality Boas had suddenly become really popular. The other thing that contributed to this increase in price was people had more money. They weren't spending money on the sporting events and concerts and travel. And the government was printing stimulus checks, printing trillions of dollars out of thin air, creating a lot of money to give to people, to make them happy during COVID. And that ultimately led to the drop or the decline in the boa market a couple years later, because of course it becomes time to pay the piper. And because of all of this creation of money, we have horrible inflation. And as you all know, the economy has been in the toilet the last couple of years, and I believe it's still in the toilet despite what the news might be telling you. So, of course, inflation has been really bad lately. Anyone who's been to a grocery store knows this. The prices of common everyday items has just shot through the roof. The price of gas is still crazy high, still $5 a gallon here in California, which is down about $1 from the highs over the summer when demand was higher. And it's just generally not a good time. People just don't have money to spend. Okay, so if you don't have money to spend and you can barely afford your food and rent and electricity, the last thing you're going to be buying is luxury items like Boas. And, not unlike watches or fine, luxury automobiles or fine art, Boas are a luxury item. No one needs them. They're not necessarily for survival like food or housing or medical care. So people are going to not be able to buy them if they don't have the money. And so the other issue is that a lot of people had to go back to work and they don't have nearly as much free time. So a lot of people probably got out of Boas because of this and they sold their Boas. So that increases the demand, or increases the supply rather, as the demand has decreased. So of course the prices go down, and that's what we've seen over the last year or so. The prices have just come down. I think their sales are still pretty strong. I've been having pretty good sales lately. I have reduced my prices a little bit, to match the market prices. I would say the prices are still higher than what they were pre-COVID, if you go back around 10 years or so. So I think prices are a pretty good level right now. It's a market that you can get into if you want a boa. But for breeders, it still makes sense to breed the Boas because it's still cost effective and you're not going to lose your shirt doing it. So that's kind of the state of the market right now. So that Argentine was a little frisky, so I thought I'd grab this Branchia Columbia Boa, beautiful female. She's actually a little frisky too. Maybe it's because it's the mating season. but we'll see how she does on camera. So anyway, the state of the market right now, prices have come down. What is the future? And so, like anything, as I mentioned, the market goes up and down, and I really think that eventually the BOA prices will go back up again to near or even above the prices that were at the peak during the beginning of COVID. Eventually, of course, everything goes up. So it might be 10 years from now, it might be 20 years from now, but eventually prices will be above the peak. So I would say that what needs to happen for the economy to improve is we probably need a change in leadership in the government. And I'm not going to get into too much politics here, but we have an election next year in 2024. If there's a lot of changes, then I think that the economy could recover and the prices of Boas are going to go up relatively rapidly. If there is not many changes in the government, then I'm guessing we probably have 4 more years of this, and it will be the late 2020s by the time economic conditions improve. And so I think this is an opportunity for you if you've always wanted certain types of Boas, but they were just out of your price range, or it was really, really hard for you to find them. Right now, you can get the same Boas that were selling for thousands, during the peak, during the pandemic a couple of years ago, for in some cases like half the price. So a good opportunity if you want to get that dream Boa. This opportunity might last another year or two. It might not. You never can tell. But eventually prices will go back up and they will be at much higher levels. Who knows how much expensive Boas and other things are going to get. If you go back just a few decades, before I was born, back, let's say, to the 60s and 70s, the prices of Boas was next to nothing, okay, as well as it was for other stuff. And we've all heard people saying about, the good old days when gasoline was 25 cents a gallon and you could buy a new car for $3,000. Of course, those days are long gone. But, as I get older and older and I count my life in decades rather than years, I am seeing that the prices of lots of stuff has just gone insane. And, don't want to get off topic too much here, but it seemed like prices were relatively stable for most of my childhood during the 80s. Then it seemed like in the 90s, prices on a lot of stuff actually decreased. And I remember gas was selling for under $1 a gallon. I was living in the South at the time, and, in the South it was cheaper. And then, we had 9/11 happen, unfortunately, and gas went through the roof. And then we had a kind of a crappy economic period in the noughts, if you will, the first decade of the 21st century. The teens was a little bit better. The late teens was really, really good. Hopefully people were invested in the stock market then. But then COVID hit and the economy went back down the toilet. So boom or bust, everything's cyclical. Things will get better again eventually, and Boa prices will go back up. But if you've always wanted a Boa, there's probably no better time to buy than now. So a word to the wise if you're thinking about your Boa breeding future. Anyway, I hope this commentary was somewhat helpful and informative and enjoyable, and not too controversial. As always, I'd love to hear your take on the subject. So please write comments below, whatever you're thinking. And if you have any questions, please feel free to shoot them out to me. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your Boas.